Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I love it. I love it. You guys are great. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Madison. I'm Teresa Holmes, Club President. Thank you all for being with us today. Today's meeting is sponsored by Jim Krieger of New Bridge, Madison, and Walt Stewart of W.R. Stewart and Associates SC. And our thanks to them for support and sponsorship of today's luncheon. You may be seated. As we move into the holidays and the season of celebrating Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, or whatever brings you together with the people that you love, I'd like for you to consider this. For the greatest love of all is a love that sacrifices all. And this great love is demonstrated when a person sacrifices his life for his friends. Last week, I attended a funeral of a man who chose to die rather than to live. When he was remembered by those he spent his time with, they all reflected two things: how he always had a smile on his face and his continual desire to serve and give to others. He lived as he died, giving, then he lived and he died, giving up. So I must confess, the truth is that I don't always live that way. I can offer an attempt to live giving more while offering joy exceedingly abundantly and full of glory. A joy freely given, and one where, regardless of my situation or circumstance, I try to bring to the places where I serve an intended outcome of building goodwill and better friendships. May we all remember and reflect in how we can all do that, either individually or corporately. Opening music. Let's now direct our attention to the opening music. Bob Dendorf will lead us in the singing of our patriotic song, Your Grand Old Flag, with Elaine Mishler on the keyboard. Then Bob will lead us, in singing our feature song, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. So if you have your mask on while you're eating, or because you were eating, please place it back on as we sing. Following the music, our guests will be introduced by Rhonda Adams.
You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may you wave. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true 'neath the red, white, and blue, where there's never a boast or brag. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the grand old flag. All right, as you're sitting down, no applause yet. Wait until I'm finished, and then you can decide. Sitting on the Dock of the Bay is a great tune in and of itself, but it is a special connection for those of you who are alive in 1967, when tragically, at 26 years of age, Otis Redding's plane crashed into Lake Monona here in town on his way to sing a show at the factory. So that occurred on December 10th. So in addition to just singing a great tune, we have Otis Redding in our memory this morning. 3, 4. Sitting on the dock of the bay, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch 'em roll away again, yeah. Sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time roll away. Sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. looks like nothing's gonna change. Everything still remains the same. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do, so I guess I'll remain the same. Sitting here resting my bones, and this loneliness won't leave me alone. 2,000 miles I've roamed just to make this dock my home. Now I'm gonna sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time.
Isn't he great? And now our guests are going to be introduced by Rhonda Adams.
It's a hard act to follow, but really happy to announce a lot of great guests here today. And so, as always, I will call your name. Please stand, and we'll hold the applause till the end. And again, grateful for all of our guests and for those that have invited guests. So, Ed Futa from After Hours Madison. Bjørnhof Ernsen, a guest of Martin Louth, our Denmark Rotarian. Abby Corso, guest of Denise DeMarb. Matt Boatwright Simon, guest of Wes Sparkman. Emily Grunwald has invited 3 guests today, Sherry Gasper, Beth Larson, and Jenny Lean. Steve Goldberg has invited 2 guests, Don Gray and Tony Shields. Vicki Holshoe has invited Michelle Harris. Michelle Henner is here as a guest of Tom Pop. Heather North, guest of Aaron Mullins. Zach Robbins, guest of Bridget Fraser. Marcio Sierra, guest of George Hidalgo. And last but not least, Cindy Johnson, guest of Mary O'Brien. Welcome to our guests.
Thank you, Rhonda and Elaine, for that accompaniment. Nice move, Bob. It's a good thing I knew what I was going to talk about. I just didn't know everything I was going to say without it. Laughter is good medicine. All right, our community grants campaign. Jason Ilstrup is this year's community grants chair, and he has a report on the update for the campaign.
Okay, I'll just admit, as someone that speaks a lot in front of a lectern, my heart stopped. I knew exactly what happened when somebody has taken my speech over and over and over again. That's why I put an extra copy down here now. So I feel for you. I also feel the club needs to apologize to Bob Dindorf because I felt like we just made him do a solo. There was like no one else singing. Maybe they really loved the salmon today, but Bob, you did an excellent job. Excellent job. All right, so I just used the word excellent. I'm not sure I can use that term about the community grants campaign update. I can say there's some excellent things, and I can say some more excellent things are going to come. But I think on today, we need to seriously think about everybody giving to the Community Grants Campaign, because there could be no more important presentation than today's amazing group. We have Bob and Tom. That sounds kind of like a radio show. Was that Click and Clack? No, I think that's Ray and Tom, isn't it? Yes, but you guys would be a good radio show. We should make that happen. But what the Madison Community Foundation does is the exact type of work that we're trying to do with the community grants, right? Because service changes lives. And Rotarians, you all can change lives by giving. Now, the good news is, the excellent news is, we're at, drum roll, Jane, we're taller than me, we're at $104,000. That is spectacular. What also is, this is amazing right now, is that only 200 people have given. That's not the amazing part. The amazing part is that if you divide that out, are there any accountants? I think that's $500, over $500 a person who has given so far. That is way above the average, around $300. So thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone who has given. Now, to the other 218, we are only at 48% of you that have given. So the phone calls have already started. Rhonda, I will be giving you a phone call. She said I could say that on stage. I'm excited to chat with you and tell you why it's important to give to the Community Grants Campaign this year now more than ever. Because I have a quote from our esteemed Philanthropy Committee Chair, Charles. Hello, Charles. Who you will see next week, because I unfortunately cannot be at the mic next week. That might be a good thing for all of you. But I thought it was going to be Joe McNeil, but it's Steve Goldberg, my friend. Thank you, Steve, for those applause. It was like a few years ago when I got booed on my birthday. Thank you, Neil Dindorf, wherever he was, who started. I've never seen that in 6 years of being booed on my birthday, but that happened too. So Charles says, no gift is too large. Totally correct. No gift is too small. Also totally correct. Just give. We're running your names on a scroll. You'll see who you are, who have given every single week. We want to see more names next week. Thank you in advance for giving this week, and thank you in advance for all you're doing for our community.
Thank you, Jason. And thank you to everyone who has contributed to this year's campaign. Lynn Sexton has been chairing our governance ad hoc committee, and she actually as well is going to give us a report. And I'm putting my script way down here.
I promise my hands are off. Thank you, President Tressa. For those I have not had the privilege to meet, my name is Lynn Sexton, and there's a remote here. And I'm the president and CEO of A Grace here in town. So the governance task force. Here is a snapshot of my esteemed colleagues who make up this task force. I kind of feel like the jester in this group of power players here. But this group has been meeting for a number of months, and you might ask, well, about what? Have you ever thought about how our club is led and managed? So we have a club president. Tressa happens to be in that role at the moment. We have a club leadership team that's made up of the immediate past president, the current president, the president-elect, and the executive director of our club. And then we have board members, about half of whom transition each year on and off the board. Beyond that, we have a few dozen committees in our club that carry on all kinds of things, like what Jason was just talking about, community grants. And we have 5 team leaders that head up clusters of committees that have kind of like-minded purposes. And then we have a wonderful club staff who helps facilitate a lot of that. Well, you can imagine there's a lot of processes that go into making all of that happen. Some of it's codified, some of it's not. Some of it we do exactly the same every year. Some things we do a little bit differently every year. Some of it matches what's in our bylaws. Some of it doesn't. And so over the years, there's been some feedback about, it not being clear how we go about kind of constituting the leadership structure of our club. And so a governance task force was convened by actually President George a little more than a year, about 18 months ago now. And it was charged with tackling all kinds of things related to our leadership structure in the club. What is the role of the board? What are board members supposed to do? How do we even nominate board members? How do we figure out who should be the president-elect and the president of our club? Is the board the right size? Are the term lengths appropriate? Do the committees work? Is the structure functional? Does each committee operate in a similar fashion, or are we kind of all over the board with things? And to the extent we're not operating according to our bylaws, let's identify that and make it right. Whether that means changing the bylaws or changing our practices, but we should be performing according to our bylaws. So the initial task force focused on the things on the left-hand side of the screen up there. It went from January till June, roughly, and out of that came the notion of a club leadership team. It's a fairly new thing in the club, as well as we streamlined a whole bunch of our committees and then aligned them into functional groups led by a team leader. Since September, we've been tackling the second part, and it's the stuff on the right-hand side up there, the role of the board. What are we expecting the board to do? What are board members expected to do? And should we make sure that they don't have a conflict that should preclude them from discussing certain topics at a minimum, or even being board members at the worst? And then let's take a peek at how we nominate directors and see if there are ways we'd like to refine that. So we've been doing this work. It has been full of passion, to say the least. I get to facilitate it, and there was one meeting where I ate 5, I think it was, Snickers. And I was trying to make the other committee members feel guilty for making me eat. Well, they didn't make me eat. I needed to eat. But they weren't this size. It was around Halloween. It was the little fun size ones. But every additional one I had to eat, I was like, you guys, we got to agree on some of this stuff. I got to stop eating this. So here's just a really super highlight of we have now a one-pager that defines what it is our board does on behalf of our club. And those duties kind of fall into 3 big buckets. Certainly they have fiduciary responsibilities. They have strategic responsibilities. What's the future of our club look like? As well as kind of innovative and generative ideas, kind of what are great things our members would appreciate or find value in, sorts of things. And then we also said, well, if you become a board member, here are the things we're expecting you to do, and they fall into those 8 categories that I laid out in the middle of the screen. And then up till now, we've never had a conflict of interest policy nor a disclosure form that we ask board members to sign where they can at least reveal if they believe they have a conflict on certain topics, make sure the rest of the board knows so that we can ask them to recuse themselves from certain discussions that they really shouldn't be part of. So all of those things were actually approved by the board at the board meeting earlier in the week. The other thing that we worked on was, okay, if we go out and we want to nominate folks to be potential board members, what is it we're looking for? We've kind of had some attributes that we look for, but they're squishy and they change year to year. So what we laid out, we recommended to the board is, there are a handful of highly desirable attributes that we would look for in a future board member. Now, these are not cut in stone. If someone doesn't have all of these things, that doesn't rule them out from being a board member. But generally speaking, we want them to have some tenure in the club. We want them to be really kind of active. And it's even better if they've demonstrated some other leadership role in the club previously. They contribute to the annual fund. They're in the Madison community or the surrounding communities. And they've been active in helping to bring in new club members. We also put forward another set of attributes for the nominating committee to consider. Things like, do these individuals help the board's demographic makeup reflect the community at large, reflect the club's membership? Does the business that they come from help reflect the mix and makeup of the entire club? So some other attributes to consider. This also was presented to the board earlier this week, and they approved this as well. Next on our agenda, and I'm sure I will have many more Snickers that I will need to eat, is the actual structure of the leadership of the board. You know, right now when we think leadership, it's two, we have a succession of two people. We have a president and then a president-elect who ascends into the presidency typically. And we don't have any other concrete mechanisms for who, if that president-elect can't ascend into the presidency, then what? That's happened to us a few times, and it hasn't been clear-cut what we're going to do. So anyway, I'm prattling on. So succession plan, structure of the leadership. How do we figure out who should be officers of the board? Is the board the right size? Are the term lengths the right size? And then we've also been asked to look into how are committee chairs appointed, and is it working for us? It might be just fine, but we're at least going to look at it. And then how all of our committees operate. Do we want to suggest some standards? If you're going to run a committee, if you're going to chair the committee, here's kind of what we're expecting, how you run that committee. And then the role of the team leader. Has it been working this past year? Any tweaks we want to make, and so forth. So there you go. And Tressa, I'm taking the Snickers.
Well, thank you, Lynn, surely, because it's been a lot of work as a committee member over the last 18 months. I don't know, George, Paul, if you're in the room, maybe Paul will get off. I think maybe he won't have to do much of the work if we can finish it before my term ends. And so there we go. But thank you so much, Lynn, and for those of you who are serving on the committee. It's been quite a lot of work, and for those of you who have either served on the board or have been a president, you know that, as Lynn said, some of these things have been hit or miss, and now it'll be a bit more, we'll have a bit more continuity and some synergy, as well as some consistent processes. So, all right. Brynjolf Ernstson, there he is, yes, was introduced in our agenda earlier. He is from Denmark and is studying at the UW-Madison this semester. A Rotarian from Denmark who studied at the UW 50 years ago wanted to help connect a student to our club because of his connection to Rotary 50 years ago. And again, was so impressive and life-changing that he wanted to sponsor a student to have that same experience. So today is Brynjolf's last meeting with us, and he is going to come up and say a few words.
All right. Thank you, Teresa. Okay, I wasn't expecting a slide, but that's awesome. So first of all, I'm very honored to stand here in front of you all to speak. It's not every day you speak for this many people. So yeah, as most of you know, my name is Brynjolf Ernstson. And you pronounced it really well. I hope everyone has had a good time pronouncing my name. It's not made for the English language. So yeah, I'm the Danish exchange student. I'm actually Faroese, but yeah, that is what it is. Yeah, so I'm here today because it's my last meeting. And for that, I want to say thank you all for being part of my journey here in the Madison, the Rotary Club of Madison. And also being part of my first time in the United States. The experience has been very cultural, interesting, and a lot of fun. I've had the opportunity to expand my network with many of you, and it has been an outstanding experience. So I'll keep my speech very short because we have a lot on the agenda, or probably. And so lastly, I just want to thank the Rotary Club of Madison and Martin Loud, who made this possible for me. So thank you all, and I hope we'll cross each other in the future, maybe in the Faroe Islands. Thank you.
Thank you. We've enjoyed having you, Brynjolf. We have. In a follow-up to last week's program, our Community Project Committee has scheduled a Braver Angels event on December 16th for Rotarians. There is a purple flyer at your table, or it may be blue. Oh, it's purple. There it is. All right. Purple flyer at your table with more details, and it will also be noted in this Friday's newsletter, so you can sign up if you're interested in attending. A reminder that our special events committee, that fellowship group, will be inviting or is inviting Rotarians to the Fire and Ice event at the Edgewater next Wednesday, December 15th at 5:30. For ice skating or just sitting around by the fire with other Rotarians and guests. I heard they have 2 fire pits already reserved. So there are blue flyers at the table with more details if you'd like to sign up. Dues billing notices will be sent out next week on December 16th for our upcoming January through June 2022 6-month period. Standard members will not be required to purchase meal tickets as of January 1. Due to the continuing pandemic, standard members will be billed for dues only, and the members now will purchase meal tickets only when attending a meeting. You can still purchase a packet of meals if you prefer, but it's optional as of January 1st. More details will be included in your dues billing notice. We'll also continue to ask for advanced reservations so that we can provide an accurate meal count to the hotel. And if members, register for a luncheon but you aren't able to attend and you don't cancel prior to the luncheon, you will be required to pay the hotel for the number of reservations you made. As of January, when you register for lunch, you can either pay online or you can purchase a pack of meal tickets and use those when you attend. Drop them right in the basket. Pat's shaking her head. And then finally, I'd like to mention attendance. Do you remember that thing called the attendance requirement? That's right. No, we don't have it anymore. Yes, I clap for that. Yeah, we don't have the member attendance requirement anymore. But we are still offering makeups during the continuing pandemic. So we're not requiring the 50% attendance, but you will have the opportunity to know that we are taking attendance for those members who are present at meetings. So beginning on January 1, we will start to record makeups if you do a makeup at a committee meeting, a fellowship group, or you do a connect for the, I'm looking for Ashley's face, she's not in the room, I don't think, the connect activity that's going on until the end of January. While these makeups are being recorded, remember, members are not going to receive notices if you are not at the 50% attendance requirement. Somebody say thank you. All right, birthdays. We have birthdays to celebrate with a bit of humor or wisdom that complements our Rotary mission. We also encourage members to make an age-appropriate gift to the Madison Rotary Foundation up to $100 for our club's Synergy Scholarship Fund. Rotarian, if you are in the room when I call your name, please stand. December 5th, Dick Rasselbach. December 7th, Jeff Tickner. December 8th, Kate Switchenberg. December 8th, Ken Yuska. December 11th, Charles McLymans, who quotes Rumi, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." Thank you, Charles. December 11th, Mary Rouse. And our thanks to our celebrants for their contributions to the Madison Rotary Foundation. Please join me in wishing them all a happy birthday. We're having lots of snafus today. I love it. We can it if you like, Elaine. Let's go. All right, are you ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. Who says we are not resilient? Come on. All right. We held our monthly board meetings. We held our monthly board meeting on December 6th, as you heard Lynn mention earlier. And by the way, the information that Lynn reported on in governance will be available in the Friday newsletter, or you can always look at it or review it at in the members only section of our website. So I encourage members to review our board minutes that we do post in the member login tab of our club's website. We want members to see our current board members who are serving. So we ask one board member to introduce a speaker each month. This month, Cheryl Wickey will make that introduction. Cheryl joined our club in 2013 and is the executive director for Safe Communities. She is in her second of a 2-year term on our club board. And so now I'll turn the podium over to Cheryl, who will introduce today's speakers.
Thank you, President Teresa. And hello, everyone. It's great to see so many people here today, isn't it? Thanks for being here. It's my great pleasure to introduce Bob Sorge and Tom Linfield from the Madison Community Foundation. Bob Sorge has been with the Madison Community Foundation since 2007 and was named president and CEO in 2013. During his tenure, the assets have grown from $130 million to $325 million. Go, Bob. Tom Linfield is Vice President of Community Impact for Madison Community Foundation. He has more than 30 years of experience in the nonprofit world as a fundraiser and program officer in the arts, higher education, public television, and community development. Bob and Tom are going to share information about the impact of large and small capital projects on their communities. We look forward to their presentation and have made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to say thanks for speaking to us today. And before I call them to the podium, I want to mention that we have a Q&A with our speakers at the end of the program as time allows, but please wait for the microphone. If you have a question, let's welcome Bob Sorge and Tom Linfield to the podium.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. I am looking at the time here, and I want to be cognizant that we want to have plenty of time for Tom to share some comments about the capital campaigns and their impact in our community. I do want to say good afternoon to everybody. I love Rotary. I've been a Rotarian since 1997. It's great to see a full house, and I think I'm more grateful for Rotary today, having been through the pandemic, than I've ever been before. And so thanks, everybody, for making the time and effort to be here, and for all the guests. We're really honored by the guests that are here as well. I also want to thank Regina Milner and the program committee for their invitation to share our expertise, really Tom's expertise on this. But I'm going to put the program in some context for you. However, before we get into the program, I just want to acknowledge a couple of people in the room. First, I want to acknowledge Roberta Gassman, who's our board chair, and frankly, the best cheerleader I know. And I can say that comfortably, knowing that Angie Bartell is in Tucson. Also, Ann Lucky is on our board, Trip Witter, and Jeff Bartell, and they are some of the most thoughtful, engaged, and committed board members that I've had the opportunity to work with, so thank you. Two more acknowledgments that I really want to make. One is Carol Toussaint. Some of you know, I don't know how many of you know, Carol led the Community Foundation in the early 80s and really created the modern version of the Community Foundation that we have been building on ever since. So thank you, Carol. And last and most importantly, there are a lot of people in this room who are donors and fund holders and Legacy Society members. And I just want to say the work that we do couldn't be done without you. So thank you very much for all of your support. All right, I'm supposed to hold this up and it's supposed to work. Well, there's another slide coming up. when people ask me about the Community Foundation, they often ask me to talk about numbers. And Jane, I can't get this to move forward, so I'm not sure what's happening here. We might be doing this without slides. Can you hand that to Jane? Okay. Oh, there we go. You can see some of the rest of our board members up on the screen. But what I was saying was that people often want to hear about the numbers of the Community Foundation. And, you know, the one highlight that I want to draw your attention to here is the $143 million invested in the community in 2020 alone. Now, part of that comes directly from the Community Foundation when you look at $29 million in distributions, and part of that comes is $114 million that we were able to leverage from outside resources for our community. And it's a really important highlight because it really provides the backdrop for today's program. When people think about the Community Foundation, they often think about our grant making alone, but our opportunity to create impact goes far beyond what our grant making does. Just to give you a little bit of perspective on this, of that $143 million, $2 million was directed by our staff and our board to nonprofits in our community and for things that advance our community. And we're intensely proud of the hard work that makes that happen. That means $27 million were directed, $7 million in resources were directed by our fund holders. And that last $114 million were government programs that we leveraged using Community Foundation grant resources. About $219,000 to leverage $114 million. I wish my 403B was seeing that kind of return. So over the last several years, we've made a commitment to digging deeper, investing in research, evaluation, and capacity building. And the results of these efforts not only help us make better decisions about our grants, they help everybody in the community make better decisions, more informed decisions about their giving. I'm going to give you one example. I've got several more, but I'll just give you one right now. After the meeting today, I invite you to go to our website, and Ann and Roberta know exactly what I'm going to say here because I talk about it all the time, and go to the upper right-hand corner and take a look at the Greater Madison Nonprofit Directory. It is an absolutely free resource that I think we developed about 4 years ago, and it provides information on every single nonprofit in a 5-county area. You can search by county, by focus area, by budget size, and you can find all sorts of information, tax returns, mission, programs, things like that. I can tell you, I know James Ty is in the audience today, that Clean Lakes Alliance has a platinum seal on the directory because, and platinum seal means they've been highly transparent with the information that they provide. So there's a lot of resources there for those who are interested. And one of the first things we did after developing the directory was to use it to fact check some of our urban myths. So how many of you have heard that we have more nonprofits in Dane County than anywhere in the United States? Anybody hear that? Anybody know the source of that information? I don't either. No, it wasn't us. No, I don't know that either because, you know what, it's just not true. It isn't. So anybody that walks out of here that says that we have more nonprofits per capita than anywhere in the United States is spreading a myth. In fact, we've got about 3,000 nonprofits. And when you look at the 5 metro areas that Madison Region Economic Partnership compares to, you're welcome, Jason Fields, wherever you are. 2 of those, so in a sample set of 5 metro areas, 2 of them have more nonprofits per capita than Madison. We are astonishingly average in terms of the nonprofits that we have. And I share this. You might ask, well, why does anybody care about that? And I'd say because perpetuating the myth perpetuates the perception that we have a bloated nonprofit sector. And in turn, that discourages people from giving, and we have less resources for our community. And by the way, it fails the 4-way test. I could share more examples. I do want to get Tom to the microphone. So I'll just call your attention. We are in the middle of producing several reports. The one up on the slide is toward a stronger nonprofit sector, an initiative, a multi-year initiative we worked on with UW Extension, where we looked at the capacity building needs of 76 nonprofits in Dane County and extrapolated the themes for the wider community. We've got a new report in the pipeline right now, but I would encourage you, if you're interested in these reports, they are available on our website. We also have copies of our 2020 annual report, which will give you a whole lot more numbers, 72 million in contributions and things like that. But again, we have lots of resources for you to take advantage of. You don't have to be a donor or fund holder of MCF or anything like that, but these are resources available to you. Our efforts to understand the nonprofit field better provide the context for today's program. The Community Foundation may not fund every capital campaign in Dane County. We couldn't. But we really try to be knowledgeable about them so we can understand their impact. We can share the promise of these facilities with potential donors to them, and we can fund the things that intersect with their programs. Here to tell you a little bit more about this is Tom Linfield. Tom is our VP of Community Impact at the Community Foundation. He's been with us for 15 years. He is a tremendous asset to the foundation, and he is truly the most knowledgeable person I know about capital campaigns in the county, whether or not we are funding them. Tom.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. And let me echo Bob saying how wonderful it is to see you all. I spent, I think, half my lunch just hugging people who I haven't seen in ages. So it's wonderful. I apologize if I'm a super spreader. I'm a vaccinated, boosted one. I'm going to talk about capital campaigns. I think I have about 10 or 12 minutes. I'm going to go quickly through a lot of images. So hopefully you will see images of things you've been involved with. I see a lot of people in the room here who actually built some of the buildings that I'm going to be showing you. And what I find enormously satisfying about my work is working with all of these passionate people, be they the nonprofit leader or the nonprofit donor or the nonprofit volunteer who are making these things happen. I looked back. Nobody has really done comprehensive research around this. The Community Foundation and United Way 20 years ago did a small report on capital campaigns. We've not found much information nationally on capital campaigns. So this is an area that is ripe for somebody to really tackle. But I'm going to talk about the impact of these capital campaigns. First of all, they're really a community asset. You cannot walk through this community. You cannot drive to any neighborhood without seeing cranes or a newly finished building or building that we all attend, whether it's a library, a school, a health center, for affordable housing. There is a vast variety of capital campaigns. By my count, we've done about 280 capital campaigns in the last 25 years, from small to large. So small might be a $65,000 campaign for a piano for the Verona Performing Arts Center. Large might be the Madison College campus on the south side. We're averaging about 15 a year of building campaigns right now. It's really quite extraordinary. The capacity building that they offer for nonprofits, to see a nonprofit from where it was to where it's gone, is really extraordinary, and it transforms not only their services, their infrastructure, but their resources to the community, and it then in turn creates a domino effect. So wherever you see one, like mushrooms, wherever you see one capital campaign, you will soon see another and another, and I'll show you some images of that. And finally, I'll talk a little bit about the financial impact. It is extraordinary. Not a lot of people, again, have done work on this. I was able to get a few numbers from various people in the community. So before I show you the images, I just want you to think for a moment, what do you think makes Madison special? That's why you're all here, right? That's what week in, week out, you're thinking about. What makes it special? How do we maintain that? How do we strengthen it? Could be parks, could be the schools. For me, of course, one of the things that's the most important is philanthropy. A third of the Madison Community Foundation's grant making goes to capital campaigns. We really believe in their transformative nature and the sustainability. Where does the funding come from for capital campaigns? You may be surprised to know that 80% of it comes from individuals. So if you have a pie chart, and we've done studies locally of this, if you had a pie chart of capital campaigns, 80% individuals, 1% events. Think about that, all of you who put on events. 15% from foundations and 5% for corporations. And if my good friend Boris Frank was standing next to me, he'd say, Tom, it's 80 to 90% individuals. That's really the growth area, is individual giving. So I'll start with this iconic image, 25-year anniversary next year for the Monona Terrace and Convention Center, which is really extraordinary. It does not feel like it's been that long. And my remarks will be about what's happened since that building was built. So financially, $33 million in impact every year, over 200,000 visitors, 50,000 people from outside Madison coming in, 34,000 hotel rentals for people using the convention center, and now they're talking about expanding it. So what has happened in downtown Madison since that time? Well, of course, the Overture Center. That was our next large investment, extraordinary, 10 resident organizations, $28 million a year in financial impact, 700,000 visitors annually to the Overture Center. I was on State Street the other night trying to find a meal. It's the first time I've been happy that I couldn't get into a restaurant anywhere. They were packed. It was standing room only. This is like the Old Testament. That begat the Madison Museum of Contemporary Art. That begat the Madison Children's Museum. What you see on the left, this is the award-winning Children's Museum, national award-winning. And on the left, if you haven't seen it yet, is their new Wonderland. $3 million outdoor play space. They raised that money and built that building during COVID. Think about that for a moment. The Madison Public Library. So the largest community foundation capital grant ever was to the Monona Terrace. That was $1 million. We were able to give $500,000 for the Madison Public Library, an extraordinary flagship for the 9, soon to be 10 branches of the Madison Library. 1.7 million visitors a year to the library. 3.5 million items are checked out each year. If you have a card, if you have a library card in your pocket, you have access to over 3 million items from 80 libraries, not just the ones in the county, but as part of their whole consortium. I'll talk a little more about libraries in a moment. The Madison Opera built a space downtown, and right next to them, what does the future hold? Canopy Dance. They've just moved in. They're involved in a $150,000 capital campaign right now. Due to their innovation during COVID, when they had to go from live classes to virtual classes, they started working with partners in other cities. They started bringing in guest artists from abroad, from New York, from Chicago, and now their new space will be multimedia. They will be able to continue that kind of work, continue film work, do multimedia presentations. So the difficulty of COVID, nonprofits leapt to that challenge, and several of the buildings I'm going to show you were all finished and done during the last 2 years. The Park Street Corridor. So in 2009, this wonderful facility at what was then the Villager Mall began. The Urban League building also contains Planned Parenthood and also contains the Goodman South Library branch. That tripled that library branch there. This really began a rejuvenation of that entire area. UW Space Place is there. There are, I think, 15 nonprofits within walking distance now of this space. And it's now called the Village on the Park. And I want to say that although the nonprofits are doing all of this work, and I'm giving you a glimpse of the nonprofit world, I do not have city and county statistics for you today, the amount of affordable housing, public libraries, of course, they're invested in. But the combination, the momentum that is given to areas by a project like the Urban League building then begets Lane's Bakery and commercial areas. If you look at the Seago Library, that's Seago Commons now, right? There's affordable housing, there's senior housing, there's an ice cream parlor, there's a coffee shop, there are multiple restaurants. The libraries have really done a wonderful job. Penny just did this on the east side, of really creating an atmosphere. So their impact is not just we built a new library. Their impact is we are an anchor tenant of a community. Madison College obviously made a huge impact by moving down to the South Campus, right across from Centro Hispano, right near many of these. They are partners. They are trying to do things that we've never done before. The STEM Academy at Madison College, in which they are helping young people at the high school level get dual credit, study STEM, get Madison College credit, and then go on to the UW to get degrees. That is an extraordinary move made possible by this new facility. Urban Triage, another small one. I think they raised $250,000 total to build their new offices now down in that area. And they were recently awarded millions of dollars for eviction prevention and tenant resources. So again, the ability to have the resources, to have your staff together, to host people, lets you then leapfrog to the next level with your organization and serve our community. Several major projects on the horizon. The Urban League is planning their hub. This is a black business incubator. There's going to be a game changer for businesses in this community. Centro Hispano, they don't have any architectural drawings yet, but they have been planning for multiple years. They're going to be doing a $7 million campaign. The Latino population has tripled in this county in the last 15 years. They are the primary resource for the growing Latinx community. They really rose to the occasion during COVID, and this is going to be a really, really exciting move for them and for the entire community. And given where they are and the partnerships that will make possible, that's a really exciting thing for Madison. And then finally, this was on the front of the paper, was it yesterday? The Center for Black Excellence in Culture. This will be a major flagship down on the south side. Alex G. and Nehemiah are presenting that. That's a $38 million campaign that is now moving forward, has $6 million in their sales already. So if you look back at the 200-plus nonprofit capital campaigns in the last 25 years, you have to think also about looking forward to what's coming next. Quickly, the East Washington, if you'd said to me 5 years ago there will be an arts district on East Washington, I think we all would have laughed a bit. But with Bree Stevens and the Sylvie, now comes the Arts and Literature Laboratory, the Jazz Consortium, a gallery, art exhibits, performance space, the Madison Youth Arts Center. If you haven't had a chance to tour, this is an extraordinary building. It's going to serve 700 families a year, 17 rehearsal spaces. This is what was needed. This is a critical thing for youth from all over the community. The Wisconsin Youth Symphony Orchestra has also just announced that they're doing a major $34 million campaign, and it is on the block next to the Madison Youth Arts Center. Where are all these families, these thousands of families, going to go and have coffee and shop while they wait for their children at their music lessons and their performance spaces? Why not the Madison Public Market that will be just down the street, a major business incubator? But I think the Madison Public Market has the potential to become something like the Terrace is. It's a gathering place, it's an arts space, it's a communal space. Quickly, I'll just talk about education. Of the 13 community centers, 9 of them have had successful capital campaigns in the last 15 years. The out-of-school time teaching that they are doing, if we're talking about the achievement gap in our school system, I really, really believe it's the out-of-school time where we have the opportunity to catch kids up and really make a difference. Vera Court Community Center, with their high school tutoring program, their high school seniors have some of the highest graduation rates in the city. Bayview Community Center, this is going to involve not only doubling their community center, but renovating and rebuilding really 200 units of affordable housing right in the heart of the city. I included this slide because the person who walked me through it, who happens to be sitting at the table near me, was afraid to show it to me. She said, "Tom, I'm afraid to show this to donors because it's such a mess." Any guesses as to what building this might be? The Goodman Community Center. That was the Ironworks building. So you could do a whole slideshow on before and after photos of both Ironworks and Brassworks. But think of the impact there, not only renovating and keeping something that was important to us, that was part of the Madison history, but turning it into something so extraordinary. Over 30,000 visitors to the two buildings of the Goodman Community Center these days. After-school programs, the First Nature preschool just started. Three different capital campaigns in the last 15 years. We're starting to see schools built with private money. Badger Rock Middle School, and now One City Elementary. That's private money. I don't know if it's a positive or negative. I think that would be a really interesting debate for you to have with speakers sometime, that we are starting to build the public schools ourselves with our charitable dollars. The Madison high schools are all getting renovated through the referendum. However, West High and Memorial High are each raising more than $10 million each for such community assets as a performing arts space and a field house. Boys and Girls Club is doing a major campaign. The exciting thing here is that half of the money that they are raising, they've raised almost $19 million, I think, half of that will be endowment. We're seeing that more and more. People thinking about how do we endow the programming and the maintenance of all of these facilities we're creating. $390 million has been raised in the last 5 years alone for capital projects on the UW campus, including the music hall, Meat Sciences, which that just sounds frightening to me, but I think it's a good thing. I'm going to go really quickly because I did want to leave a little bit of time. Public libraries everywhere. We've seen 20 capital campaigns out of the 28 libraries in our county in the last 15 years. That's really amazing. And Oregon Public Library is closing in on raising their money again. Triples the size, becomes a community resource, a senior center, a youth center. a place for people to meet, to gather. Old Brick Park, multiple campaigns. The community gardens have tripled in the last decade. There are now 60 community gardens. 20 of those are food pantry gardens. Every pound of food is done by volunteers, reaped by volunteers, and brought to food pantries. The zoo, the health center, the Arctic Refuge, the Badger, the visitor center, they keep growing and growing. 500,000 free visitors each year to the zoo. Recreation, Redden Soccer Field just keeps growing. The West Madison League, what does the future hold? The Miracle League, someone that right now is halfway through to a $2 million campaign to build a fully accessible baseball diamond, poured rubber floor, wheelchair accessible. I don't have slides for everybody. I look around the room and I see all these leaders and they're going to think, you didn't show I didn't talk about the why or the... So I'm going to go through these really fast, but these are example after example of something that was small and then a dream and a vision gave it momentum, and you, the community, helped build these spaces. One last story, one last slide, and then I'm done. Madison Reading Project. They're about 6 or 7 years old. They started with $1,000, worked with 30 kids. Their mission is to give away free books. 3 years ago, they raised $150,000 as part of a capital campaign to buy this mobile van, the Big Red Reading Bus. They were then giving about 30,000 books away because they would go to 60 or 70 locations around the county. Then COVID hit. They continued to grow. They gave away 60,000 books last year. This year, they're on their way to giving 70,000 books, and this month, they will give away their 250,000th free book in this county. Nothing is stopping them. This is my last slide. We started with Frank Lloyd Wright and his last design. This is his earliest design. This is a design of the Frank Lloyd Wright boathouse. The city right now is readying funds for a national request for proposals for a redesign of the John Nolan shore. Think about that. Think about if that shore were to have a 7-acre park, were to have music space, were to have that boathouse. What does the future hold? This is our future. This, 20 years from now, hopefully we'll be sitting in this room talking about what's happened since then. Open to 10 questions. I know I've gone a couple minutes over. I didn't get the big yellow sign, though, but I'm happy to chat with you from the dais or personally anytime. Thank you very much.
I want to thank both you. I want to thank you, Tom and Bob. This couldn't have been a better program about what has happened in the past and what could happen in the future. I have a question, though, and you made a brief reference to it. I'm going to do a campaign pitch, too. I came from Omaha, and in Omaha, Nebraska, 20% of any capital campaign, everyone knows, goes to endowment. And you referenced endowment. Endowment for these projects are critically important. Is there any thought within the Community Foundation or within other organizations in town to start considering that as a possibility for these projects going forward?
Great question, and absolutely. And she's not a plant. As many of you know, I'll talk about endowment any day of the week. I came out of higher education, where traditionally higher education, you put in 15% endowment just for building maintenance, let alone all the programming. This is something we do a lot of counseling. I talk to about 400 plus nonprofits a year. I've talked to everybody who's doing capital campaigns. We always talk about endowment. The Madison Community Foundation actually gives endowment challenge grants. In fact, we're looking at a proposal right now from an organization. Half the money they want is for the capital costs. Half the money will be to help them build their endowment. So we believe really strongly in that. We give to endowment. If you're part of a family foundation, if you're part of a corporate foundation, if you're thinking of a donor, you know donors, please tell them it is the sustainability of this social network that is so critical. We all love the brand new gleam. I mean, think about when you buy a car. Boy, you're happy with that car that first few years, and then 5, 6 years later, it starts to have a few issues, and 10 years later, you've got to buy a new car. It's the idea of saying, we built this $30 million building, but we need to keep fixing up and keep growing and keep expanding our programs.
I guess he's done.
No more questions? I have one more question, Teresa. I used to be on the board, and I'm a very nice guy. Well, I want to talk about the inspirational things that they do at the Community Foundation. 3 years ago, Omega had lost some of our funding, some of it for good reasons, and others I talk too much. But the main thing is, I had a meeting with Tom, and he says, "How much are you going to raise?" And I said, "Oh, maybe,
Ask your question, please,
Yeah,
Oscar.
questions coming." He said, I said, $250,000. He said, "Oscar, I have groups here raising $1 million. You can do it." And since that meeting, we've raised over $1 million. So thank you, Tom.
Was that a question? I didn't think so. Rotarians, you like your questions. At the Q&A? Okay. We are adjourned.